Hey everybody, welcome to Engage with your hosts Josue Devi and Kate Jones on UMFM 101.5. Today we have a super special guest. We're talking to Omar from the Winnipeg Mutual Aid Society. The Winnipeg Mutual Aid Society is a group located in Winnipeg driven by connecting people to resources and information. They facilitate connecting people to the resources and programs while also focusing on the well-being of people. We're really excited to have this conversation and learn more about them and what they do. So without further ado, I guess Omar, you can introduce yourself and a little bit about your role at Mutual Aid Society.
Hi, everyone. My name is Omar Kinnarath. I am founder and organizer of Mutual Aid Society, community member, father, and, just a concerned person in the community trying to do good things and connect people to do better things, I guess how you'd say. So that's just a brief introduction about me. Live in the West End, lived in Winnipeg my whole life, or pretty much my whole life. I was born overseas and came here when I was really young. So, I had the whole type of West End experience here. And, like a lot of the things I experienced growing up, whether I experienced them firsthand or through my friends, I kind of, taking that to heart when I'm doing this and realizing that we are, in a way, helping a ton of families out there, man. Like it's pretty impactful, the things that happens on Mutual Aid Society, that's for sure.
That's awesome. That's super awesome to hear. I think it's always important to just have experience growing up within the communities that you're working in. So it's really good to hear that, you have that experience of just being involved in the community and then being able to start something now. Can you tell us a little bit about what mutual aid is?
Mutual aid is a form of societal organizing that's, pretty much as old as time, right? Or as old as human civilization or even pre-civilization. Mutual aid was pretty much was summarized by Kropotkin, who, look it up. He basically wrote the manual on mutual aid and basically going into the functions of mutual aid between flora and fauna and between humans. Like, for example, the relationship between sharks and remoras, the relationship between bees and certain plants, and then those relationships with what the bee produces and how it affects humans, right? So basically, mutual aid is part of a political theory called mutualism, which basically says that cooperation is the key function in societies and that we must cooperate to make things better and to advance, which is the opposite of what's going on now, where it's very individual based. So mutual aid is ancient, you know what I mean? And obviously we have, a great tradition here with Indigenous folks. And I think that's why Mutual Aid Society Winnipeg is grown so much and so long, because those functions between the Indigenous communities and the immigrant communities here, it was already here. So I could say, yes, this is anarchist political theory, but in reality, what we do is as old as time and as old as the people that's, as old as the people that have been here. So it's kind of hard to say because, I got into it through the political theory, the anarchist political theory, but you realize that this has been going on for a very, very long time, and and it works. You know what I mean? If you compare what we do and how societies that function around mutual aid are happier, are more comfortable compared to individualistic societies that we live now, it's pretty apparent what the differences are.
Okay, very interesting. So what exactly is your specific role at the Winnipeg Mutual Aid Society?
So what I do, we have a group of about 8 or 9 core organizers, and we run a Facebook page that at the moment has 11,000 members. And within that page, what happens is if people have help to offer, whether it's food, resources, skills, knowledge, information, whatnot, they can post it. If people are needing help with food, information, resources, or pretty much anything, they can ask for help. We try to make that part of it as barrier-free as possible. So, and obviously with 10,000 members, there's a lot of it going on. So what we do day to day between the 8 or 9 of us is facilitate it. A lot of what we do is helping other people do things, other organizations either get resources out to people or to share their programs or whatnot. And we do quite a bit of organizing our own events and our own pleas and our own campaigns as well. But of course, we run into capacity issues because we do have jobs and we don't get paid for this. We're not a nonprofit. This is something we purely do because we believe it is a proper societal function rather than trying to be an organization. We want people to believe in it as well and organize themselves and become organizers. So yeah, so this part of it is kind of hard to explain to a lot of folks because, they're used to like hierarchical organizations where we are not hierarchical and we're completely decentralized, and we encourage other people to do what they need to do, and we support them along the way. And, it comes to, we talk a lot about, is it easier to manage 50 people all doing one thing or 10 groups of 5 people doing those things? We believe that it works better if you have different groups of people doing different things. So that's what we basically do day to day. If anyone's interested, they can go see it and they can participate in it. It's very participatory. A lot of people ask questions that you could probably answer, and a lot of people need help, which, you can offer. So, we don't think of it as we're 8 or 9 people that are core organizers. We think of it as 10,000 people, doing this, like participating in mutual aid. And we're just the facilitators to try and, make it function and take care of the daily business, whether it's, like approving posts, taking care of disagreements, or, and those kind of things that you need to do to have that sort of thing function. We're not the only mutual aid group in the world. Of course, like there's mutual aid groups all around the world, and they do basically the same thing. And, as you can see through the pandemic, they've been ultra successful. I mean, you can read stories about all the work of all sorts of mutual aid groups in the United States during the pandemic, and, snowstorms, hurricanes. It seems to be something that is grown, and sort of like people know about it now, and they sort of know the functions and know what to expect. But yeah, it's something very old, but very new to a lot of folks, and we get it. But, the only thing I can say is like participate in it, and you'll see how it functions. The thing with mutual aid is you see it work in real time, and you see people get help in real time. Whereas if you donate to charities or or different organizations, you don't quite get the same effect. Like if you can directly affect someone's life, with what you have, and you can save someone's life with what you have. And we've seen a lot of examples of that, and the examples that we've had of people getting help and who are in dire situations through MAS, like there's too many to kind of go through. I mean, it just happens. It almost happens every day. And then, folks from the outside, can see it happen. Like you can read the comments, and you can see the timeline and stuff like that. And you can see kind of the chain of events that happen. So yeah, so I think there's a lot of trust that's put in mutual aid groups right now because of the overall transparency in how it functions.
That's incredible. That's super incredible to hear. Just kind of the scale of work that happens and comes together. And I'm definitely like a believer in the same thing, that the more people that come together, the more you can make happen, and kind of just being able to look out for each other within the community is super important. I'm curious, when the local, like Winnipeg Mutual Aid Society, I'm curious when you guys started, when things kind of came to fruition and what it was like in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, we started basically the day of the first lockdown. I remember talking to a few people at the time, my partner and 2 other people that ended up being, the organizers of Mutual Aid Society, is because we come from that political and philosophical school, right? So we know how important it is to have that type of organizing in our community, which at that time, hasn't happened to. That's obviously it's happened between people. Like people give all the time, and it's a natural thing to do, but there hasn't been like organizing on a bigger scale of that. And I remember, being kind of a paranoid weirdo person I am back in 2008 during kind of the financial, turmoil that was going on there. And I was like, maybe this is the time I have to pull the trigger on this, like, because people are going to really need this, but, that didn't happen or didn't hit as hard. But when the pandemic came, it was like, this had to happen. You know what I mean? Like this is really going to affect things but people are really uncertain at the time. And, everybody, who's still alive right now has had that experience back in March of 2020, right? Like you didn't know what was going on. You didn't know about CERB. You thought we were all going to, you know what I mean? There's no toilet paper. And so it was a big time of like kind of a collective mass confusion. And like when we stepped in and like started, it was like literally like we grew from 0 to 1,000 in like a day and a half. You know what I mean? And it just started naturally happening. And like you can see it, you can kind of like sort of see it kind of go from there. And the great thing about it is you can go on the Facebook, or I guess now the Meta site or whatever, and you can go back to all the way and you can see it all happen. You know what I mean? And at that time, it was just basic things like, what was not in supply because of supply nature, like toilet paper. People were sharing toilet paper, like cleaning supplies, like was a big issue as well. And, people were helping people with that. When the lockdowns occurred, folks would shop for each other, go shopping because of the lineups or whatnot. And like, it was just this thing that like brought everyone sort of together, Yeah, and it kind of like grew from there. But yeah, it was definitely the beginning of the pandemic that kind of got it started. And, at that time, and like, I mean, through the past 2 years, let's be honest, like things have sucked. But one thing that was awesome was this, you know what I mean? The community coming together, and not just like Mutual Aid Society, but like, if you really think about it in the last like 20 months or not, like who's really held it down is like, like different organizations in the city kind of like just stepping up their efforts and like just going out of their way because, we still have massive problems, right? And, it's amazing on one end to see, kind of all the non-governmental organizations or whatnot, like doing their thing, but it's awesome to see the community doing their own thing and helping each other like through Mutual Aid Society. So yeah, it definitely was that. And it almost seems like whatever challenge that comes up, we're able to meet it because first of all, we have a large pool of people who are in need, but we also have a large pool of people who like have a little bit more privilege and have a lot to give too, right? And through Mutual Aid Society, like they can kind of like meet each other. There's automatic like wealth distribution, right away. We saw this like massively during our heat wave in the summer. We did a massive fan and air conditioning drive, which, you know what I mean? Like no one really thinks about it or no one ever does, but it just at that time, it was like, like we seem to forget how difficult that was. I mean, it's not difficult for like people like me who have central air conditioning, but it's like, it's difficult for folks like who are in like certain living situations. And yeah, it was like the outpouring of support was like, it was phenomenal. You know what I mean? Like we had no issues like meeting that need. You know what I mean? It was just it was like, and that's why I do this personally is to see that happen. Like it's not easy to do and it does take a lot of time, but when you see folks stepping up and meeting the need, like I'm like, this is why I do it to make this happen. And it's great. And man, Winnipeg comes up, like they come up big every single time. Whatever drive we do, it's like it always goes beyond what we think could happen, where we get into like capacity issues or issues with time and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like we think it's going to grow. If it's successful, it's going to be like this, but it always exceeds that. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, I mean, like, life sucked. It's been bad for everybody for the last 20 months, but like the best thing that's happened is definitely, the growth of mutual aid and not only Winnipeg, but like everywhere.
So overall, this has had a very positive impact on you personally since the fruition of the Winnipeg Society.
Yeah, I mean, like don't get me wrong, it's not the easiest thing to do because I'm dealing with people's needs and like every day, and like it gets me upset. Like it isn't happy time. It's not a happy time when I do this, right? So, but at the same time, it's like it gets good when people do get helped, right? So it's kind of like it's not easy to do, but when it works, it's the reward from that is, it's for me personally, like that's why I did it, because like, back in March 2020, I was thinking, like we have to go out and prove something. Right. We weren't trying to organize things just to organize things or like to be a certain group. Like we were trying to prove something. And the premise was the mutual aid is the best and the most proper way to organize society. Right. So, and I think we've proved that, right? Like we proved on a small scale that if people kind of had these values, that people would get taken care of. Right. So it was more like it was a mission, but I also knew like it had to be done. But I also knew that if it was built in a certain way, like it would just function properly. And, luckily, we've had the pitfalls and, like we've learned a lot because of failure, but I think we have to be open to that because of the scale of it, that we have to be open that, things aren't going to go smooth all the time. You know what I mean? And, when things fail or don't go right, like that's hard to take, but at the same time, it's like, the train and the train or the bus or whatever, like it goes forward. So we can't lose sight of that. We've learned for them to become better. So it's just a different way of doing things. And, as an organizer, as someone who has a family, as someone who works a 9 to 5 job, I have to make it part of my life. Like, this isn't something I set like 2 hours a day for, like 1 hour a day. This is something that like happens throughout my day, so. And this happens with the 8 or 9 other organizers as well. Like, they have their own lives, but their organizing happens when, like, it happens 24/7. Like, if they're up to 3 a.m, like they're checking posts and like that. And so I've been lucky to have, 8 or 9 people kind of on the same wavelength, because I know that a lot of folks couldn't do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not easy to do, but what can you say? I mean, when it works, when people are hungry, get fed. I mean, how do you feel, right? That's for everybody. They feel good. So, and if we can continue to do that, we can all feel good, right? So, because we're helping and we're making people happy, and that's what we should do, as like not only here in Winnipeg, but the planet, or our entire civilization needs to do that, because we're gonna run into some bad times.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, and sounds like very impressive. Definitely sounds like an immense amount of work. Would you be able to explain to us what the Serve the People initiative is?
The Serve the People initiative, that's another function where, like, those folks run with like firewood co-op, and they prepare meal boxes, through the summertime, like seasonal vegetables, fresh fruits or whatnot. And they partner with different organizations like Stein Foundation, and they get food out to the community, basically farm fresh food out to people that need it. So that happens, and they just do their thing. That's one example of, through Mutual Aid Society, different organizations start beginning to work with each other. Like, the core organizers aren't even involved at all. It just functions the way it should function. You know what I mean? And it's amazing to have so many people working in so many different organizations, kind of like on the same wavelength, who like understand, what we do and what they do. And the great thing about Winnipeg is that people here are they're all pretty cordial, pretty friendly people. And you know what I mean? And you can get a lot of things done by just being nice to each other.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, definitely. And I totally agree. Winnipeg's just been there substantially for so many different things, initiatives like that. Like, we run a care package initiative in the summers and in the winters. And every single time, Winnipeg will show up with their donations. They'll show up with their support, show up with the places that need it. Yeah. So yeah, it's just incredible when that stuff comes together. Another question that I had, I know you were talking about the Facebook group. Is that the easiest way for people to become involved in what you're doing and to kind of become more a part of the Mutual Aid Society?
Yeah, and it's like we go where the people are, right? Like, what's most accessible, and like whatever my thoughts are on Facebook, and like, you know what I mean, what they do. Let's be honest, that's where the folks are. It's kind of like the easiest way for this type of thing to function, right? So it's on Facebook, and you can go just type in Mutual Aid Society Winnipeg, you'll find it, and you can participate, and you can see people being helped and people helping. You know what I mean? So it's a good thing just to browse through, and if there's a way you can help someone. If someone needs flour and you have kilos and kilos of flour, drop it off for them, and like you'll appreciate it. And again, if you need something, if you're missing a couple nails or pillowcases or whatnot, it doesn't hurt to ask the community, because you do get them. I mean, I've gotten things that I've asked for that I didn't think I would get, because you'll around. And nowadays, with everybody on their phones and computers and stuff, like, people can just see it, and they can just browse to the group and say, hey, oh yeah, I have a bunch of those, and connect with somebody who may need it. So yeah, it's definitely the best way. You can also check out the website as well, masywg.ca, and you can connect to us through Instagram as well, at masywg on Instagram. And yeah, that's how you pretty much get involved, is pretty much through the Facebook group, because that's where the need is. But in terms of like helping and donating, you can get at us at any of those ways, and we'll be glad to help with what you need.
Awesome. And just before we wrap up, is there any kind of upcoming news or events or anything like that you'd want to touch on coming up in the near future at all?
I mean, we're kind of at this point where we're waiting to see what the need for Christmas is going to be, and see where we're going to be are for restrictions or whatnot. I mean, we all remember what happened with last year with Christmas pretty much being canceled. A lot of organizations that were doing things weren't doing things. So, we had to do things en masse, to kind of like fill the need. So we're kind of like waiting and seeing like what happens there. So yeah, hopefully in the next week or so, we're going to decide if there is a need to do a drive, but also, definitely encouraging folks to help privately during the holiday season with whatever you have, and supporting all the other agencies and organizations around that are doing things like in and around Christmas. It's kind of an unpredictable time now with a lot of people being cut off of CRB. So we're anticipating that the need is going to be pretty high. We just don't know where it is like right now. But I'm sure we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks or so. But other than that, I mean, there's nothing else I have to say than, help people and treat everyone like you need to be treated, participate in mutual aid, help the community, organize your own events. That's what it's all about. If you need any help, if you have an idea and you want to organize something for the community, get in touch with me, get in touch with MAS, and we'll definitely help. That's what we do. And we've seen so many folks, approach us with ideas and do things, and they've just gone out to do, fantastic drives and things for the community.
That's incredible to hear. Yeah, no, absolutely agree. And I'm interested going forward to even reaching out, maybe just talking a little bit more about our initiatives with care packages, because I'm sure that the group and everybody involved there is totally on the same idea. And, just getting more people involved is always our goal. So super excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
One question that we like to ask before we end things off is we like to give our guest a chance to choose which song will play as we air on the radio, which song will play afterwards. So if you had one, then you can feel free to throw in your choice.
Okay. We're going to play some propaganda, and we're going to play Note to Self.
Yo, that's awesome. We'll get it done. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and educate us on what exactly y'all do. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, your answers have been incredible. Thank you so much. Everybody, this has been Engage on 101.5 UMFM with your hosts Josue DeVee and Cade Jones. We were speaking to Omar of the Mutual Aid Society. Go and check them out. Thank you.
Peace.